guys, welcome to a new episode of In Other Words with Danielle and Zara.
So this is a podcast where we talk about a wide variety of different subjects, from social media pages to follow to breaking down stereotypes. In other words, we talk about all the things.
Cool. So you have a local brand that you want to share with us today.
I do.
That's very exciting.
Yes. So I feel like this is more aimed toward the ladies, but I mean, you do you.
Exactly.
So
no gender norms here. Thank you very much.
No. So my mom actually found her. She has her own business called Roxy Eyes, based in Durbanville, and my mom had microblading done.
Fancy.
So she didn't have eyebrows and now she has eyebrows.
Wow.
And they look stunning, and she has her lashes done. And that's quite a common thing, actually. I think I'm like the only girl left standing in my family that doesn't have their lashes done. And like my mom's had lashes done multiple times in the past, and it's just never agreed with her. She'll always like have fall out, or it'll feel uncomfortable. And like she's been so happy with Roxy. So you can find her on Facebook, Roxy Eyes.
Very exciting.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about...
We're activists now, guys.
Oh, true. We've such good activists, actually.
Yes.
You know, like we share so many infographics all
We're
the
so
time. Active on Instagram.
Yes.
You know how it is. Anyway.
We're actually not that active on Instagram.
No, we're really not. We probably should be.
If you guys get more people to follow us, we will be so active.
Anyway, so we are talking about slacktivism today.
Indeed.
So before we get into what that is, I'm just going to read what activism is in case you didn't know. So activism is the policy or action of using vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. It's basically what it is.
Cool.
But now, what slacktivism is, it is the practice of supporting a political or social cause by means such as social media or online petitions, characterized as involving very little effort or commitment. So basically, we're all slacktivists these days.
Pretty much.
I certainly don't call myself an activist.
Certainly not.
Because I don't do anything.
This is true.
So yeah.
So should we get into just our thoughts around the topic?
Yeah.
I will find my fancy notes.
Cool. I don't really have fancy notes. I have 5 points.
I mean, let's be real. My notes aren't super fancy.
That's okay.
Either.
I think what I think the most about slacktivism is that activism has become like extremely trendy.
Yes, that's the thing. It's like a part of mainstream culture now.
Yes, and in previous decades, activism was done by like a few people who supported like a very specific cause or something like that. But now, let's say when you have Instagram or you have TikTok or Facebook, Twitter, whatever, it becomes very easy for you to like just get behind a certain cause.
Yes.
Or even just to, you follow these information pages or like pages that share all these infographics all the time, and for you like, oh, I'm just going to share this.
Yeah.
And that it has essentially become a new form of activism, even though like I wouldn't necessarily call it activism.
Yes.
I
think it's almost an attempt as well to like be current, but also like PC.
Yes.
It's the way you stay politically correct
and relevant.
Yes. I often think, and we've spoken about the pressure that like the general public puts on celebrities sometimes, is sometimes it's like absurd of you not to post something. It's like it's expected of you.
Yeah.
But again, like, what is the point of putting something out there if it's being put out there with nothing thought of or done behind the scenes?
Exactly. I think sometimes what is concerning to me about some of the forms of activism, and I'm just going to talk specifically about Instagram posts, is often, especially infographics on Instagram, like there'll be these beautiful aesthetic pages of like, this is all you need to know about this issue, like let's say Israel and Palestine, and like and then they'll just like condense it into this tiny little fun pretty infographic,
which isn't necessarily all bad. In
no,
fact, I mean, I follow these pages.
Same, absolutely.
I'm like very grateful for these pages.
But I think people rely too much on those pages, and they almost get all of the information from these pages. And the thing is, it's impossible to have nuance, I think, on Instagram with those kinds of things. And I think like we forget that there's bias involved.
This is the thing, and often with this new rise in activism / slacktivism is it very much leans toward one side.
Yeah.
The people making the pretty posts generally tend to one side.
Yes.
And so that's all you're ever seeing.
Yes. So yeah, like I said, there's not really ever enough nuance, and like I've not really ever come across the page where it like shares the full story, but people don't really like, it's fine to get your information from there and to like learn about issues from there, but I think when that's the only place that you're learning about things and those are the only things that you're sharing, and then you're calling yourself like an activist, I mean, like obviously, like
I think that's the issue, is labeling yourself an activist.
Yes, and it's like, oh, look at all these things that I shared on my story, I'm so cool. And listen, like we're all guilty of doing this.
Yes, go
somewhat.
Look on my social media.
Yeah, like
I've done it.
I have shared many things. Like sometimes it'll just be an issue, and I don't know, I sometimes feel like, oh, I should probably post about this here,
there's this
like
pressure.
Yeah, and like I probably put it on myself because I don't think anyone really cares, and like
no one's actually like searching Danielle's name every hour to check if she's posted. No offense.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I would. I
think you do stalk me
all the time,
but I mean, like nobody thinks about me, and like I don't care if anyone else posts about a certain issue.
Yeah,
but for me, like if I see other people posting, I'm like, oh, I should probably too, because like what does it look like if I don't?
Yeah,
you know, and that's just really dumb.
I agree.
Yeah,
I also think when it comes to like, I don't know, there is this part of me, and I think we all have it somewhere deep down inside of us, is like we want to change the world, we want to make a change.
Exactly.
My favorite saying is, if you can't change the toilet paper roll, you can't change the world.
I do change the toilet paper roll.
Me too, because I think of that and I feel guilty.
I just hate it when other people don't, so I'm like, I have to do it.
But I think what's important is like picking one cause that you're passionate about. And when I look at like activists, especially those who are very, very much involved on social media, like I can point out what their causes are. There's no confusion. It's not like one day they're posting about this thing and the next day they're posting about something completely different. And like one such example is Sophia Bush. So I am a lover of Sophia Bush, and I mean she's an actress, so
she's wonderful.
There is this hesitance of like, she's an actress, is this
like
just,
what does she really know?
This is just but if you like follow her, I listen to her podcast, and I mean she's the type of person where she goes to Parliament and talks to the people there.
That's great.
She studied politics.
What a lady.
What a lady. And so this is someone who actually has like rapport in the field. She has a voice and people are listening. But like she has a very clear agenda. It's not like she's all over the place kind of thing. And so I think it's important that activists are characterized by their cause for them to be a real activist in a sense. I know what you mean.
Do you think like I don't know, do you think being an activist is almost exclusive then? Like, I mean, because like the normal people, you can't really just go, I mean, you can go to Parliament, you can protest, you can go to Parliament, but you don't necessarily have like a big group of people listening to you. And like I even think of someone like Greta Thunberg, and she obviously had to work and like protest for ages and ages and ages before anyone actually ever started listening to her. So like, how do normal people become activists in that way?
Well, I mean, before like the age of social media, people were still labeled activists, maybe without all the fame and, you know, the spotlight. But I think it's like putting your head down and putting in the work. And I think the thing with the label, and you saying like there is a level of exclusivity, and in a sense rightly so, because I think we can all form some part of like activism and doing our part, but not be activists. So like people who that's their main cause, that's what they throw everything into. That's kind of how I would label it. But for me, it's like really people who like put their head down and do the work.
And like, that's not to say that if you don't do that you can't like support causes. And even like, I mean, you just think of how easy it is to protest these days, like to go on a march or to boycott something. Like these are the little things that you can do, but it doesn't, like, I don't think it necessarily makes you an activist. I mean, maybe it does, I don't know, but like I wouldn't say, like, if I had to do that, like I wouldn't say, oh, I'm a climate change activist if I go to one climate change march, you know what I'm saying? Like I think it almost, I think you can also include little actions though, to be honest. Like if you like make a point not to support certain companies,
for me,
not to buy certain products,
thing.
Like that's like your money is essentially your vote in that way, you know? So I think like it really does come down to the little issues. And I think one thing that like bothers me is you'll often get people who are posting about certain issues. So let's say someone is posting about, oh, fast fashion is really, really bad.
Yes.
And like, okay, yeah, it is, and people should know about that. But then like you still go and buy from all these places, let's say every single week. And there's like, I just want to clarify that there's nothing wrong with shopping fast fashion every now and then if you don't like bulk buy.
Yes.
If you're not.
And the reality is like, shop fast fashion.
Yeah.
All the time if you want to, but then don't vocalize and post like, about how you are.
Yeah, and like essentially like guilt other people, because I think that's often how it comes across. Like, oh, why are you still shopping
but
here?
I think that's a huge that's the huge issue with like this wave of Instagram like activism, is just it evokes a guilt sometimes rather than inspiring people.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think like true activism and social media used in the right context only comes when it starts actually influencing people to do something, because that's the point of it. You're sharing stuff to inform people and push people to stand up and do something. And if you're just posting and there's no effect with others or within your own heart,
it's not really doing anything. And I think it's literally just to make yourself feel better. And like, once again, we're all guilty of doing this. You know, you kind of feel like a sense of accomplishment, or even like a sense of pride, because it's like, oh, look, I was so good now, and I shared this thing, so now people know. But I mean, how much do they really know? If you're just sharing a picture of something or like a little text thing on Instagram, like realistically, it probably won't do much. And I do think that they can be very useful. They can be very, very useful, and there's a lot of power in knowledge and in information. And if it like, Instagram is great and social media is great because it makes these things more accessible. But once again, like, I don't think it's enough. You know.
So this is something I've like had to really, because this is something I'm very guilty of. I'll call myself a slacktivism. Slacktivism?
You are slacktivism.
I am slacktivism. I will call myself a slacktivist because I see this in myself, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I recognize it, and I'd like to get better. But I like to kind of taste myself like recently is I'll often say like, what am I doing just before and just after? Like, if I post something, if I see something that breaks my heart, does that break my heart for 5 minutes?
That's the thing.
Or like, are we going to do something about it? And the one thing I will talk about is last year? Yes, 2020, the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd situation. And like, I've had, and we can do a whole episode on this. It's like our key line.
One day we'll do a whole episode
on like racism and stuff like that. But I think it really pushed me to like a breaking point and opened my eyes a lot. And like, I went through like a stage where I was feeling incredibly heavy and just like frustrated and kind of heartbroken. And I mean, being in lockdown kind of heightened that a lot.
Absolutely.
And maybe that was necessary. But like, it really caused me to look into my own heart, like deal with issues in my own heart, and then look at actually like, what is happening? Like, well, this is not new. And
it's not only in America.
Yes.
It's everywhere.
And so like, my hesitancy, and this is still something that frustrates me, and please don't feel judged when I say this, but the whole Blackout Tuesday thing.
Oh yeah. It was so performative to me. So
everyone posted a black square, and listen, if you posted a black square, like, I don't know your heart, and
and I think to an extent it was like for a good cause, but also like, what did it actually do? You know,
so that's the thing. And like, for me, and this is, I promise not a brag, but I think for both Danielle and I, we had some like serious crises
all the time, actually.
Like, oh my word, like, what the heck are we gonna do? And we actually joined a forum for a couple of months, which I don't know, I found really helpful and informative.
It was very informative.
With people we don't know around the country, and we just kind of, we're all very like from different backgrounds, and we just got to chat about these issues and stuff, and I feel like I learned a lot. And like, that was kind of my way of informing myself. And so have I changed, haven't changed systemic racism, but have I changed my racial tendencies and even my inferiority complex sometimes because I'm not white? Like, it's really helped me. And so like it's those issues, like ask yourself, is it making an impact beyond that moment? But then there are also a lot of issues that I've posted about that have only broken my heart for a day and I've moved on. So I think like it's dangerous opening yourself up to a cause, because it can literally send you into a downward spiral of depression.
It's too much.
But I think like ask yourself, like, how can I do the little things?
Yes.
Especially if I'm posting about something, how is it
going to be put into your actions?
Yes.
Like, what are your actions going to say about it?
Yes, exactly.
I think what's really, really interesting to me about social media, and obviously I think, like nothing in the world is new. No. And so there's always been new crises.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Exactly. There have always been new crises and new events and like new things that are horrible that like happen all the time. But now obviously that we have so much access to information, we are being exposed to all these things. So on one hand, that means that people get passionate about things for literally like 2 days or like a week, and then it's done.
Yes.
Like for example, people get passionate about Israel, and then okay, that's done within a week. Yes. And now we're getting passionate about this, and then it's done.
Yeah, it's the same with like a fashion trend, really.
It's literally exactly what it is.
Yes.
And I think, everyone feels like they need to be some sort of activist. You don't need to.
You don't need to.
Like, truly, like, please don't make us, like, we're not trying to make you feel like, oh, you need to be doing more. You literally don't need to if you don't want to.
No, and that's why I said, like, find what breaks your heart, and just, like, what happens behind closed doors is so much more important. And there are certain causes that I see and it breaks my heart, but, like, it's just not my like field. Yes. Or
and if you try to do too much, and like this is also just the other hand of social media, is that I think we are not meant to be exposed to so much.
No,
and we like,
it's not like,
we're essentially like looking at violence, we're looking at people being murdered, and we see it every single day, and there's always a new cause.
Listen, but just saying, like, we become desensitized.
So desensitized. Like, but it's also like we think we're desensitized, but like it still affects us in our brain.
100%.
Like, we're not meant to be seeing that.
No.
And like that's also what's really dangerous. Like when you're trying to take on all of these issues and tackle all of ththese problems, and like you're just seeing all of this horrible stuff that is happening in the world, like it's really not healthy. So like I find it incredibly overwhelming. Social media is so overwhelming sometimes. And like I follow like information pages, and sometimes I'm like, I really can't. Like I really can't deal with this right now because it's too much. And like you really do have to prioritize like your mental health as well.
For sure.
Because if you're just doing stuff like because you feel guilty or because you just feel like you have to, but like inside you're feeling like, oh, this is horrible. Like take a break. It's fine to take a break sometimes.
And give yourself some grace,
like we can't solve everything.
No.
Like there's no
way. Sometimes we can barely
sometimes we can't do anything.
Exactly. And then another thing that I've found, I find it more impactful than reading something on social media, is conversation. And I mean, we have a podcast. Is I feel like there's so much more impact in the one-on-one conversations or group conversations I have with real people. And so, I mean, I think that's why I enjoy podcasts so much and stuff, is just hearing people's stories. Because I think often I've seen on like Instagram infographics and stuff like that, is it's information and it's in theory about people, but there's that lack of like relational.
Exactly.
And I think people who've changed the world because they had some encounter with a person one day and they realized, well, life, this stuff is a mess. So for me, it's like I want to be the type of person that actively looks to have important conversations and to learn and to grow and to ask people.
That's what's really important, is being open to learn, knowing that you don't know everything. If you read an article about a certain thing, like, you're not an expert.
No,
like, I'm sorry, you're really not. You need to be open to new ideas, new opinions. And I think also what's really important, like when it comes to activism, and like once again, I don't consider myself an activist at all. I just do like my little things that I'm passionate about. But oftentimes, like, people will almost like, let's say there's a certain group of people that is being oppressed, like just an example, and then like people find out about it, people post about it, but no one actually bothers to go and speak to the people who are like involved with that. And this can be literally with any issue, like nobody bothers to go talk about the to talk to the people who are being affected. And it really becomes like this very performative thing, this savior thing. And that can also be really dangerous, obviously.
Another thing that has frustrated me, and just, like, I think whenever I think about it, it's terrible. It's infuriating and like terrible. Cringe. So Danielle, you can kind of chat about it and read what I'm speaking about.
So there's this show that has been introduced. I don't think it's not a thing yet, but it's called The Activist, I think. So I'm just going to read you a description of what this is. It's essentially an activism competition. So this is what it says. Activists go head-to-head in challenges to promote their causes, with their success measured via online engagement, social metrics, and hosts' input. The three teams have one ultimate goal: to create impactful movements that amplify their message, drive action, and advance them to the G20 summit in Rome, Italy. There, they will meet with world leaders in the hope of securing funding and awareness for their causes. The team that receives the largest commitment is celebrated as the overall winner at the finale, which will also feature musical performances by some of the world's most passionate artists. Are these the end times?
These are the end times. It's the most bizarre thing. It's solidly taking a group of people, saying, let's find a cause, let's get money, let's compete against each other, because
because that's what activism is actually about.
Yes, it's about determining whether climate change or the people dying of hunger, which one is also
it's such an ego thing. Like, oh yeah, I was able to get the most support for this issue. Like, look how cool I am. It's such an ego
bizarre.
thing.
And then we have like a concert.
No, it's so weird. It is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life.
I just think that is the definition of like performative.
That is literally all it is.
It's very, very scary. And I have to like wonder, how did this come about? Like, who in your, like, just think about it, like, who signed off on this, and how did so many people say this is a good idea?
But it's literally like some CEO, some business person who was like, oh yeah, the youth, they're really into activism these days, let's make a competition about it. Like, what dystopian reality are we living in right now?
And I think it just like amplifies like the already toxic culture of comparison. Like, absolutely, even on a small scale, like you compare yourself to the person next to you.
I'm not doing as much as they are.
Yes, and it doesn't come from a place of I'm so inspired by them, I should be doing something. It's like, oh shoot, I need to catch up to that person. And
I think also, like, what's quite bothersome to me is obviously you need money for that kind of show, right?
Yes.
So why, if you're so into activism, why not put the money into an actual existing cause? You know, like, why are we trying to make a competition that is literally all about like appearances and like who's the most popular, instead of investing money with people who are already making a difference or who have the potential to do it? Because like what I predict will happen here, if the show even continues happening, because I feel like they've gotten quite a lot of backlash, but you know, the winner, they'll win, they'll get the most support from the G20 leaders, and then within like a few months or a year, their cause is done. Like, I can't see how it'll have a lasting impact. I mean, maybe they'll prove me wrong, but that's just my prediction for it.
And I think like there's a lot of thought that needs to be put behind, like you said, starting something new. Because there are people that have invested their lives in the issues that you are only now coming to realize and be aware of.
Do you know what it gives me the same vibes as? Is when people like, let's say like from America or wherever, they go on like the outreaches to Africa, and they go and they build houses in Africa, even though they have literally no experience in building houses in Africa. But they
call it Africa.
Yeah, but they neglect all the like NGOs or whatever who are already at work there helping the people, and like they just build these houses with no experience, build schools with no experience, and then leave it, and then the things all decay because they didn't actually help the community, like from the grassroots, you know.
And I mean, we did that in high school. We spent a day with kids, painted their wall.
We literally just painted the wall.
And that was that.
But that was also like, we had to go like for a school project. We had to go and do charity work. So I was like, cool, we'll go and like play with children. Yeah. Like we didn't build a building because that thing would have collapsed. But yeah.
So it is like, I know exactly what you mean. And I think it's important that you are never motivated by pride. You know? Like, don't do something to make yourself feel good.
I think that's often what slacktivism is, though.
Yes.
And like we all do it. It's like, oh, we feel better if we post this. So I'm just going to post it.
Yes.
But like, what are we actually doing?
Yes.
But anyway, so what do you think is the best way to be an activist?
Have a podcast.
Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. So
and be Danielle and be Zara.
Okay, perfect. So that's our lesson for you guys today.
No, just kidding. Don't start a podcast. Only listen to this.
Yes, we don't want any more competition. Thank you.
So for me, like, again, like, find your cause. I think that's important. Then, because before you even like maybe start getting your hands dirty, read. I know that sounds so silly, but like, information is power.
It is. It's so powerful.
That's so power. So scarily. But yeah, like, read about issues. Like, again,
get all the different sides of the story as well.
Yes, like, read books, read research papers. If you're not a reader, listen to audiobooks. Yes,
and like,
ask people.
Find things that are written by the people who are actually like affected, or you know, like, don't like just read some guy who like went to visit some African country one time and was like, this is what I saw. Like, no, see what's actually happening.
And then one of the biggest parts of activism is to make a social change. But generally, to make some sort of social change, you need a political change, because everything revolves around...
Everything is political.
Yes.
Surprise.
And so, vote.
Yeah. Vote.
Know what's happening.
Yes.
Like...
Listen to our political podcast. How about that?
Yes.
Our political episode. Yeah, voting is very important and very underrated, I think.
Yes.
So it's like, it's not
weird.
It's not like a glamorous thing. It's literally, you know, you just go and vote for your party.
Yes.
Or like your president, or wherever you live in the world.
Yes.
However your voting system works. I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Then something you mentioned is sign petitions. And again, it's like, what does that do? But the reality is, you're still taking time out to do something that
and like, I think people still classify that as like a form of slacktivism, but I think it's doing more than just like sharing something or posting something, because I mean it depends on the organization that's doing the petition, because I think there are some pages, because you know, you can like just make a petition however, but like some of those pages take the money for themselves, like portion of the money for themselves or something like that. So just do your research on like where your money is actually going. Because once again, like, money is important, like if you're donating, and like petitions are also really important, but oftentimes like, I wonder how often do they get to the people in power? Because that's, I think, what petitions are really about. You know, like, if you're signing a petition about a certain company, is it getting to like the board members of that company? If you're doing it to the government, like, is it getting to the government? Or is it just there to make you feel better about
and are you consulting
signing a petition?
The people who need to be consulted in order to get things from A to B?
Exactly. And I think they like, money is like really important when it comes to these things. Unfortunately, money is important always, but especially I think when it comes to petitions and all that, like.
And like, I've often found myself criticizing the wealthy by just throwing money at causes and not doing anything. But I've really had like a change of heart in that sense, because I think, yes, there is a line, but at the end of the day, that's still helping, you know, and it's still some sort of personal sacrifice. And I think that's important. And like you said, you kind of need money for anything.
And like, money and spending is a form of power. And like I said earlier, if like a form of your activism is not buying something,
that is huge.
I think it does make a
one
difference.
Of our biggest roles in society is the role that we have as consumers.
So I think that can be really important. Like, once again, I don't think it makes you like an incredible activist, but it's once again, it's the small things that can make a difference.
Exactly. And then speaking to people, having conversations. Sometimes they're awkward conversations. Sometimes they're really exciting conversations. But just ask if there's something you don't understand, and just like communicate with people.
Absolutely. And I think as well, like, I think marching is quite important, to be honest. Like if you're going on a protest
I've never been.
I've been on
Didn't you go to the gender-based violence march?
Not in town. I did one in Stellenbosch because I had class, and Stellenbosch was like, sorry, you can't go, and I was like,
well, that's rude.
Thank you. So I've been to one of those, but I think, like, if you just think about the attention that so many marches get, and I think that's what's quite important. Like, if you're bringing attention to certain issues, and like, I think marches, I don't know why marches get so much attention, but it's kind of like, oh, look at all these people doing this thing.
Well, that's the thing, you know.
And I think, like, that's quite important. And it also, like, not actually a lot of effort.
No.
I mean, you can be putting yourself in danger of some sorts.
Yes.
If
we advocate for peaceful.
We do. But unfortunately, not everyone agrees with that ideology.
Yes.
And also, the police can be dumb sometimes. No offense, police. But
please don't arrest Danielle.
Got my hands up. So like, you can. It's very low effort most of the time. And you're like, I think it's fine to do things that are low effort, to be honest. Like, we're not everyone has to be some sort of martyr. Not everyone has to be putting themselves in endangered
trenches.
In the trenches, you know, for their causes. Yes. Because, like, that's a lot to ask of anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then another thing for all y'all Christians is prayer. And I don't think prayer I think it can be a cop-out sometimes.
I definitely think that.
But I also think there's a lot of power in prayer, just, yes, because we're expecting for God to move, but also because I find myself becoming a lot more, number one, compassionate, and two, less stressed. Because, like, you're actually taking the time to, like, lay these things before the Lord. They're not all just sitting up in your head creating, like, chaos.
Yeah. I do sometimes get, like, really bad vibes though, when people are just like,
I'll pray about it.
I'm like, I'll pray about it, and I'm like, okay, and then what?
Yeah.
And then,
So
you know? Yeah, it's definitely a cop out. I feel like it can rub people in a really bad way sometimes. And, like, I've seen people on social media, they're like, oh, you know, like, when Christians see an issue, they're just like, oh, I'll pray about it, and then they don't do anything about it.
Yes.
But there's even, like, a Bible verse that's just like, what is it? Faith without works. But, like, it doesn't necessarily, doesn't necessarily, like, apply to activism or anything, but I think it can.
Yes.
I think, like, if you just, like, oh, God will just take care of it.
Yes.
But, like, you can do stuff by yourself, you know?
Yeah. God will not help you through the test if you didn't study.
Exactly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sad reality.
Then I have a question for us, Danielle.
Okay.
Is our podcast a form of slacktivism?
I wouldn't call our podcast slacktivism or activism, to be honest, because we've never once claimed to do that.
Yeah.
I think conversation is important, but I think, like, genuinely our podcast is mostly, one, for fun, two, to talk to each other, and three, you know, to initiate conversations between other people, and, like, for people to chat to us about things. I wouldn't consider us activists or slacktivists or anything like that. In my personal life, would I consider myself an activist? No. Would I consider myself a slacktivist? Like, maybe, but also, like, I've never claimed to be an activist, if you know what I mean. So what do you think?
Yes. No, I think it can easily be seen as that. If people see us as, like, taking on this, like, we are better than others because we're having really these important conversations. No, and there are many more important, impactful conversations that people are having outside of a podcast. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I don't think, like, we literally have we have a small following in comparison to many other podcasts.
But maybe we would have a bigger following if you share this with your friends.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, like, I really, considering most of the stuff we put out is literally, like, fun stuff or just things we feel passionate about, and not necessarily, like, specific causes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we could be considered either. And, like, we've once got in the comments, and I think our feminist one that said actions speak louder than words, and I'm like, okay, cool, but this is a podcast.
I still don't understand what that meant.
Me neither.
The feminism episode. I could see that in other episodes maybe.
Yeah, but it's also like, this is a podcast. Like, the whole point is words.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. You can't see us unless you're watching on YouTube. And if you are, I'm waving at you right now.
Yes, that's an action. So.
Yes. And again, like, I see this, like, I think a huge call of being a Christian is being called to activism in the sense that, like, that we have a responsibility to love people and to, like, put others' needs before
absolutely
ourselves and stuff like that. And so like something I've been challenged about, and I mentioned it in a sermon once, and I think we all kind of felt a little bit is like when you post a Bible verse or you wear a necklace with a cross, and like those things don't make you a Christian. I only have cross
earrings, so I think that makes me, because that's two of them, so I think that makes me a double Christian.
Look at you.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you have to like actually love people and not just say you love people.
I mean, even if we look at the early Christians, right, like we look at how the disciples were, you know, after Jesus went up to heaven again, like they were like fully supporting, like making a community, supporting each other. And like, I don't know, I just think like there's something really beautiful in that. I think oftentimes, you know, in our Western culture, it's all about me.
Yeah.
We like forget about that part of the Bible and like how they all supported each other, how they supported, you know, orphans, widows, the poor. And I think like that's certainly like a small form of activism and something that's really important. And I think oftentimes a lot of churches just don't get that, to be honest, unfortunately.
And I also think regardless of where you are at, like it's like you can make a difference where you are.
Yes.
You don't have to travel somewhere far. You don't need to like leave this legacy where a book is written about all the great things you did. Like you can impact the person next to you.
Yeah.
Just like I've impacted Danielle.
Yes, so much. Not in a good way though, unfortunately.
You're so rude. But then like something that I found, like I was just scrolling through my social media, and this is 3 things. So I like reposted the fact that 2020 saw an 11% increase in rhinos and 0 poaching in Kenya. And like that was very exciting for me. But I do post with the understanding that I don't know what the poaching numbers looked like last year. Before that, I know poaching is a huge issue. But it's still something that I'm excited about. And so I'll share it.
Yes.
But like my heart isn't to like claim that I'm a rhino activist.
No.
But then 2 things that I was like, ooh, Zara. So I tweeted once, and I feel strongly about this, but Dear Hollywood, please stop promoting adultery. Seriously, no one wants to be cheated on. It's disgusting. And amen to that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
The amount of shows where I want the couple
I know
who are not married to be together.
It's like, oh, they're soulmates.
I know.
No,
like
he is married.
Derek and Meredith.
Yeah.
Instead of Derek and Addison.
Yes.
And like now watching Downton. And then Matthew kissed Mary, and I was so happy, but he's engaged.
Yes.
These are issues. So Zara, stop supporting those kinds of things if you're going to moan at Hollywood. And then one more thing.
But you can't stop watching Downton.
I will not. I will not.
Good.
The one thing that this is something I still feel a deep conviction about is, again, going back to the racism thing. Like I really sat with it, prayed about it, did like some hardcore, like just reading and talking, like last year specifically. And like I ended up going on social media and kind of just sharing my thoughts. And one thing that I've said, and I actually screenshotted from my own Instagram account, and I said, we need to make friends in other cultures. Don't just appreciate diversity from a distance. Let's immerse ourselves in diversity. But I can still say right now that I don't have any close friends of color. Like close friends of color. And it's
you're my close friend of color. Beat you.
Aren't you? Cool.
I know.
And it's like, yes, I'm calling people to like immerse themselves in diversity, but I haven't done that.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's
very difficult.
You know, like once again, living in a Durbanville bubble, it's very difficult. But I think, you know, being in university is actually such
a wonderful place.
Yes, because there's such a
people.
melting pot of cultures. Actually, like if you're in res, you see like there are so many different people of so many different cultures, and even in your classes, like, you know, like just chat to people. And like for me, I'm like an introverted person. I don't like to chat to new people actually, unless like I have to, or like out of convenience. But like it's actually not that bad, and like just do it, it's fine.
So and my point that I wanted to get across is like, I just don't want this to come across as like we are so cool.
Like please, I cannot stress this enough, like we don't consider ourselves activists by any means. But I think another thing that I was thinking about, like, you don't necessarily have to start your own thing and like initiate your own thing. Like you can get behind a certain organization that is doing something, and you can get involved there, you know, if you want to donate, if you want to, you know, like do their charity work or anything like that. Like that's an important
cleaning
form
out
of
your cupboard and giving things away.
Yeah.
That's something I really, really need to do ASAP.
Yeah, same actually. But yeah, you don't have to like initiate these things for yourself, you know, like you can join onto a certain organization. But yeah, once again, like I just think you just need to be careful of what you're posting.
Yes.
Be careful of like if your actions aren't matching up with what you're posting, like you really need to check yourself.
Yeah.
And
we all need to do this.
Yes. And yeah, very much so. Yeah. And also make sure like just check where your information is coming from. You know,
we
if
say this literally every episode.
Yeah. If you're following like these information pages on Instagram, like they're really cool, but they do have a bias, and be aware of that bias, and don't think that you can only look at that and then you know everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, like unfortunately, like your sharing of a post is not necessarily activism. It's like I do think it can be worth something.
It can be a great thing. I've learned so much.
But yeah, like I like don't consider like I would say like just don't like call yourself an activist. I think that is like a dangerous thing, because then everyone is just like, oh, look at all this the stuff that we are doing, and in the meantime no change is getting done. Yeah.
That's pretty much all I wanted to say about.
And like you don't have to get involved with every single cause, please. And like even
just
if you
start by being a nice person.
That's actually
step one.
Very important. And don't go onto any reality shows about being an activist, please. That is so cringy. I can't deal. Anyway, that is our episode.
Yeah, so
let us know your thoughts. Comment below if you're on YouTube, or send us a DM on Instagram at @inotherwords_podcast.
Yes, that is our Instagram account.
Like, subscribe,
do all the things. Okay, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.